Welcome, everybody. This is Rain Vanisher, and today we're going to delve into a story about choices, their consequences, and finally, confrontation being the completion of the cycle in some sense, I suppose. Now, with that, viewers' discretion is advised to anyone who's sensitive to the subject of conversation that we'll be having today, which will be ranging from things like suicide, depression, domestic abuse, um, affairs, homicide, and being bullied at school in some sense. All of which we will try to address with as much precision as possible in relation to the story at hand. Now, to my belief, I think the story tries to take on two essential problems. First would be the original sin, which would be the origin point of the cycle which starts at all. Given which, can one escape the repeating cycle of life created by the willful ignorance of one's choice, or the choices of other which in one way or the other impacts our lives? Which suggests that it may not be you. Your wretched existence may be a result of the choices made by other people, which you not only have to live with, but accept. And that may be a part of the element of confrontation in some sense, although I'm not too sure about that because acceptance could be a resultant outcome of confronting things or vice versa. So with that, today we get into a show that actually manages to finish its own story, unlike some other fucking shows which drag themselves for seasons to come, only to lose their own credibility as a result. Today we discuss a 6-episode long anime, directed by Shinya Ino, which happens to be a director of some of the episodes of my favorite show of the decade, Made in Abyss. But today, we are not ready to delve in the deepest layers of Abyss. So today, my people, we delve into Takopi's original sin.
ねえ、そこに誰かいるの?
Now, to talk about the narrative of the show, I cannot help myself but give a contrast comparison of this with something that I grew up watching all my life, and that is Doraemon. Doraemon for the pure elitist fans out there. But this Doraemon is not from the future, nor a robot. It's an alien that comes from the planet of happiness to Earth to make people smile and to make people happy. Now, to take a note there, these creatures exist and perceive reality from what we would call a framework of only positive emotions, which means they lack the ability to experience things like sorrow, anxiety, fear, and sadness. And that is beautifully depicted in the ways that Takopi thinks and acts throughout the show. It's an ability to understand human inefficiencies and the ways in which we choose to deal with those emotions. So with that, our little alien arrives in the first episode on Earth, confronted by our main character called Shizuka, who appears to be a lonely, secluded middle school girl, a target of bullies and depressed in a perfectly nonchalant way. So much so that she refuses any help when offered to be happier in life. And that is perfect, because she's not trying to be happy. You don't see past the horizon of your own cage when you live in it. You don't expect or have any desire to make things better when you truly live within the confines of your little God-given hell, which is life. So she outright refuses to use any of the gadgets our Takopi puts on the table, as she sees no utility in trying to make things better, as if there was a better. Now, just to put it out there, this is kind of where the show exceeded my expectation in terms of how they choose to maintain the uncertainty over the episodes to come, to reveal what the state of our main character is like, and as we slowly get to learn more and more about her and what makes her who she is today. Now, Shizuka is a daughter of what we would call a prostitute, a divorced mother who earns a living by sleeping with other men. Some of those men happen to be the dads of her classmates, which in turn gets her bullied at school for ruining the family dynamic in which these fellow classmates are forced to live and grow up in. So the bullies do have their genuine reasons in some sense. Now, Shizuka does miss her dad and does long to see him, but throughout all of this, the one thing which keeps her going every day is her dog at home. The one true friend which she has had all her life. A friend which she is soon forced to lose when her dog ends up getting violent against one of her school bullies and is put to rest as a result. And that is the day when she finally chooses to accept Takopi's help. Our Takopi gives her a rope of friendship. Each side of this rope, if held by two people, will bring them closer, with the hopes that Shizuka will use this gadget to become friends with her bully, and as a result of which maybe even become happier or smile. Takopi breaks a key rule of her species, which is to never allow anyone else to exercise the use of these gadgets without their supervision. But Takopi gives it away at the request of Shizuka, whom she so desperately wants to see become happier in life. Now, not being able to reconcile her actions with her conscience, Takopi sooner or later charges to Shizuka's home and finds our main character, hanging from the noose made out of the rope of friendship, and well, dead. Now, this is the moment where I'm kind of sold, right? Like, if you're gonna kill the main character in the first episode of the show, that's a huge risk to take to establish the storyline in some sense. So I'm like sitting here having orgasms at this point. And anyway, we are not even done with the first episode yet. Takopi, out of desperation, and maybe even some guilt if she can experience that at this point of the story, cannot accept this fact. And with the use of one of the gadgets introduced to us in the earlier part of the episode, resets time to a point where Shizuka is still alive and attempts to fix things for a better outcome, if that is even possible. So we almost go through about 3 to 4 resets until nothing changes, and each time the outcome kinda remains the same. But we get to see Takopi try every different approach possible, even as far as to take a human form and go confront the bully herself. And for a creature who cannot even comprehend conflict, to see her brutally physically abused and experience pain is fucking amazing. The tear pouring out, which she does not even understand the reason behind from a human body, it's beautiful. Now, thank the Lord we are not tortured with the resets of the cycle along this for more than 1.5 episodes, because after the third or the fourth reset, something changes. Shizuka still gets bullied and beaten like a crap, which Takopi, being directly confronted with in the hopes of protecting her, smashes the bully's head with one of her gadgets and, well, kills her. And this time, as a result of which, Shizuka, looking at the corpse of her classmate, finally smiles out of genuine happiness. And I cannot explain how beautiful that is, so please watch it. But anyway, you would expect them to panic and probably show us another reset to bring this person back to life somehow. And that is because, in some sense, what Takopi wanted had actually been achieved. Our main character is finally, genuinely happy. Although they don't completely escape the crime scene either, as one of the other classmates, Azuma, who I like to think of as Dekisugi with a lot more personality and character this time, this motherfucker actually has his personal reasons for being good at school and striving to become the best, which is the result of being overshadowed by the charming personality of his elder brother at home, who he could never just catch up to, and trying to win the approval of his horrible mother, who should be fed to the dogs after being chopped up in pieces. But anyway, Azuma witnesses the crime scene and, well, after being explained the sequence of events which led to this, decides to help them. Now, on a side note, Dekisugi likes Shizuka. So Azuma decides to help them bury the body, and Takopi, at the request of Shizuka, takes the human form of Marina, our dead bully, to avoid any suspicions from being risen about a missing person. Takopi, then filling this role, goes back to our bully's home, where we finally get to see the personal trauma she has to go through, where we face a mother rejected and ignored by her husband, who instead chooses to use his money to go sleep with Shizuka's mom instead. And that is what our bully has to face at home every day. A mother who deals with her trauma by beating her daughter into a pulp and then emotionally blackmailing her about how she expects her daughter to be on her side. Now, that kinda sums up our cast in the show, and this is what I kinda meant by one's wretched existence not being a result of their own choice. These are middle school kids at best, who suffer horribly due to the choices of their own parents or the people around them, at an age where they're not even old enough to comprehend such complexities. Yet, they have to face them. The story is then followed by the resolution for each of these characters, including Marina and Takopi for that matter, where there's something that they have been running away from which they have to come to terms with. A confrontation which is unique to each of their storylines, most of which was largely depicted by a lot of tears and emotional breakdown. And they do indeed resolve the storylines of each of the characters involved by the end of the show, which I have to commend, because it's rare to see that. Hell, it's rare to see most shows even end these days for that matter. But yes, I have my qualms about the final resolution and to the extent to which the playing around with time is involved as a means to solve these problems, but not so much, honestly. We get to see the glimpse of what the planet that Takopi comes from is like, and that was nice. Although the overarching question at the end is the title of the show itself, Takopi's original sin. Just where exactly does the sin begin? Is it a sin to try to help people, or to make them happy, or change their fate? Is that us stealing away their challenges and their ability to deal with it? Takopi goes through many of these struggles in her attempt to dissolve everything by the end, which she does, and in the truest fashion disappears from the memories of these characters. And with that, I'll leave it to you. I think this is a masterpiece and probably one of the best original shows to come out this year, but what do I know? I am not caught up with most of the stuff that comes out nowadays, so let me know if there's something out there worth watching. Hope you had fun. Don't kill yourself. And don't demonetize this video. If you're gonna do that, don't take it down at least. We're gonna talk about Made in Abyss soon, hopefully in the future, by the way. The movie is scheduled to come out in 2026 before season 3 ever comes out. So that will be a way deeper conversation, hopefully in the future, if we ever get the chance to have that. More arbitrary, more abstract than this, but hopefully we get there. But with that, my people, this is Takopi's original sin. Beautiful.